My blood pressure used to sit at 148/92. My doctor wanted to put me on a second medication. I said, give me 6 months. That wasn't stubbornness. That was 22 years of nursing instinct telling me there was more to the story. Because here's what they don't always tell you in that 10-minute appointment. The vessels that carry your blood, they're living tissue. They respond to what you eat, what you breathe, what you grow. There are plants, real, common, humble plants, with documented effects on the very mechanisms that drive high blood pressure. Not magic, not miracle cures, evidence, tradition. And in some cases, decades of solid clinical research that would surprise you. I'm Clara. I spent over 2 decades as a registered nurse in the Pacific Northwest. Now I grow things. Now I study things. And today, I'm sharing 12 of them with you. Stay with me to the end, because number 7 is the one that genuinely caught me off guard. And I've been doing this a long time. I want to start with something that might surprise you, because when most folks think heart herbs, they go straight to garlic or hawthorn. Olive leaf doesn't get nearly enough credit. Now, the fruit gets all the fame. The oil gets all the cookbooks. But the leaf has been used medicinally since ancient Egypt. That's not mythology. That's documented. Here in Oregon, I can't grow an olive tree outdoors. Wrong climate entirely. But I keep dried olive leaf in my pantry year-round. Have for about 8 years now. The compound we're most interested in is called europaea. I won't make you memorize that. Think of it this way. It's the bitter stuff in raw olives that nobody likes to eat straight off the branch. That bitterness is biological armor, and that same armor appears to work on the smooth muscle tissue inside your vessel walls. The walls of your blood vessels are actually muscular. They tighten and relax constantly. When they tighten too much, your pressure goes up. Europaea seems to help those walls relax. That's not my claim. That's what a 2017 review published in the journal Phytomedicine documented, looking at the accumulated evidence from multiple human trials. The effect was modest but consistent. And here's a detail I find beautiful, in a very creator-designed kind of way. The same leaf that protects the tree from microbial attack and harsh sun also appears to protect the human vessel from chronic pressure. Designed with intention, if you ask me. Here's what I do. Simple as a Sunday morning. I use about 1 heaped teaspoon of dried olive leaf, roughly 2 grams, to 1 cup of just boiled water. Not a rolling boil. You want it off the heat first, then pour. Steep it for 10 minutes. The liquid will turn a pale, almost sage green color. Some batches go more amber. Depends on how the leaf was dried. The taste is mildly bitter and a little earthy. I've grown to love it. You can add a thin slice of lemon if you need to. I won't judge you. 1 or 2 cups a day is what most traditional protocols call for. I always say, be patient with plants. They work slowly and gently. That's actually a feature, not a flaw. Important note from my nursing days. If you're on blood pressure medication already, olive leaf can add to that effect. Talk to your doctor before layering these in. That's not a disclaimer for the sake of a disclaimer. That's genuine. I mean it. Hawthorn. Now there's a plant with a history. This thorny shrub grows at the edge of my property. I didn't plant it. It was there when I arrived, and I consider that a gift. European folk medicine used hawthorn for the heart going back centuries. The 17th century English herbalist Nicholas Culpeper documented it. That's a long paper trail. What's in it? Flavonoids called oligomeric proanthocyanidins, OPCs for short, plus vitexin, hypericide. These compounds appear to do a few things at once, and that combination is what makes hawthorn stand out. First, they seem to relax the blood vessel walls. Same general idea as olive leaf, but through slightly different channels. The vessel lining becomes less reactive, less prone to that chronic tightening. Second, there's evidence. And the German Commission E, which is basically Europe's version of Herbal Standards Authority, approved hawthorn specifically. There's evidence it supports the pumping efficiency of the heart muscle itself. What does the research actually say? A 2003 meta-analysis, Pittler and Ernst, published in the American Journal of Medicine, pooled data from multiple randomized trials and found hawthorn improved exercise tolerance and reduced symptoms like fatigue and shortness of breath in people with mild to moderate heart failure. The effect was real, and more importantly, the safety record across all those trials was excellent. That matters to me as a former nurse. Safety always matters. I think about Hawthorn the way I think about a good neighbor. Consistent, dependable, not flashy. Just steady. That's what you want in something touching your cardiovascular system. Hawthorn is a little different from olive leaf. With the berries, you decoct rather than steep. That just means simmering, not just pouring hot water. I use about 1.5 tablespoons of dried berries. You can also mix in a teaspoon of the dried leaves and flowers if you have them to 2 cups of cold water. Bring it to a gentle simmer, not a hard boil. Then let it go for about 15 minutes. Lid half on. The color goes from pink to a deep burgundy. Beautiful, actually. Strain it through a fine mesh. What you end up with is about 1.5 cups of a tart, slightly sweet decoction that smells honestly like autumn in a cup. 1 cup a day is my practice. I've been doing this every October through March for years. It fits the season. The berries ripen in fall. Makes sense to use them then. Right, garlic. I know, you already knew garlic was good for you. Bear with me, because most people know the folklore. Fewer know the actual mechanism, and it's genuinely fascinating. The active compound, allicin, is only created when you crush or chop a raw clove. It doesn't exist inside the intact garlic. You have to damage the cell to release the enzyme that makes it. That detail matters for how you use it, which I'll get to. Now, allicin and its derivatives appear to signal the smooth muscle in your vessel walls to relax. They also seem to reduce the stiffness of larger arteries. In your 60s and 70s, arterial stiffness is one of the primary drivers of elevated systolic pressure, that top number on your reading. A 2016 meta-analysis, looking at data from multiple randomized controlled trials, found garlic supplementation produced a statistically meaningful reduction in systolic pressure in people who already had elevated readings. The effect was most pronounced in that high-risk group. I grow 3 varieties in my garden: softneck for storage, hardneck for flavor, and a purple Sicilian I picked up from a seed swap 3, maybe 4 years back. Now, was that 3 or 4? Oh, I don't remember exactly. Point is, they all work, just differently in the kitchen. The creator put sulfur in garlic. There is something almost poetic about that. Sulfur, which has this ancient elemental quality, being the very compound that helps keep our vessels open and pliable. Here's the key step that most people skip. You need to crush or finely mince the garlic, then wait 10 minutes before you eat it or cook it. That 10-minute window allows the enzymatic reaction to complete. Don't rush it. The enzyme needs time to do its work. If you throw raw garlic straight into a hot pan, you stop the reaction before it can fully develop. The heat destroys the enzyme. I eat 1 to 2 raw cloves a day, usually minced into olive oil with a little lemon on a piece of sourdough. My neighbor thinks I'm faintly eccentric. I consider that a compliment. If raw garlic causes digestive upset, and for some people it does, aged black garlic is worth looking into. The aging process changes the sulfur compound somewhat, but appears to retain much of the vascular benefit, with far less irritation. Hibiscus. This one genuinely surprised me when I first dug into the research. I grew up thinking of hibiscus as a decorative garden flower. Pretty, not particularly purposeful. I was wrong. Hibiscus sabdariffa, the roselle variety, has been used in traditional medicine across Africa, Central America, and Southeast Asia for generations. The part used medicinally is the calyx. That's the deep red fleshy structure that surrounds the seed pod. It makes a tea that looks almost like cranberry juice. Tart, vivid, beautiful, and the anthocyanins, the pigments that give it that color, appear to be a significant part of the story. A well-cited 2010 clinical trial published in the Journal of Nutrition, run out of Tufts University, gave participants 3 cups of hibiscus tea daily. After 6 weeks, the group with elevated baseline blood pressure showed a meaningful reduction in systolic pressure compared to placebo. The proposed mechanism involves hibiscus appearing to act somewhat like a mild natural ACE inhibitor, which is the class of medication many doctors prescribe for blood pressure. It seems to reduce the tension in the vessel walls through a similar pathway, though far more gently. I grow 2 hibiscus plants in large containers on my south-facing porch. They don't survive my Oregon winters outdoors, but they come inside in October and they do just fine. The harvest in late summer, those crimson calices, is genuinely one of the more joyful moments in my garden year. You can make hibiscus tea hot, but I prefer the cold infusion method. It preserves more of the delicate anthocyanins and, frankly, it tastes better to me. 2 tablespoons of dried hibiscus calyx to 1 quart, that's 4 cups, of cold filtered water. Stir, cover, into the refrigerator overnight. By morning, you'll have a liquid the color of dark garnets. I strain it, sweeten it very lightly with raw honey if I'm in the mood, and drink a glass with breakfast. The cold method has a softer tartness. If you prefer it hot, steep 4 to 5 dried calyces in 8 ounces of near boiling water for 5 minutes, not longer, or it gets quite astringent. Now this one flies under the radar. Most people know celery as a crudité tray item, or something you put in soup. The seed is an entirely different conversation. Celery seed contains a compound called 3N-butylphthalide. I'll save you the pronunciation. That appears to relax the smooth muscle surrounding blood vessels. Same target, different molecule. There's also a natural compound in celery seed that appears to work on the kidneys, helping them release more sodium and water. That's essentially what certain diuretic blood pressure medications do. The celery plant seems to have worked that one out long before the pharmaceutical industry did. Now, the research base here is thinner than with garlic or hibiscus. A lot of what we know comes from animal models and ethnopharmacological tradition. Traditional Chinese medicine has used celery seed for pressure-related complaints for a very long time. I'll be honest about that gap. The data is preliminary, but the mechanism is plausible, and the safety profile is good. I came to celery seed through an older colleague of mine, a pharmacist actually, who'd been studying plant-drug interactions for decades. She mentioned it almost as an aside one afternoon. I wrote it down. That was about 6 years ago. Celery seed is one I primarily use in cooking, rather than as a dedicated tea. The flavor is strong and medicinal, which takes some getting used to. Grind a half teaspoon of seeds in a small mortar and pestle, and add it to salad dressings, soups, or grain dishes. You get the culinary flavor and the botanical benefit at once. If you find the flavor too assertive, celery seed extract capsules are widely available. Look for products that list 3N-butylphthalide as the active compound on the label. Standardization varies between products, so follow the manufacturer's dosing guidance rather than guessing. Beetroot, humble, earthy, underestimated. I grow 3 rows of them every year, and every year I'm reminded how much useful chemistry is packed into a vegetable that costs almost nothing. The story here is nitrates. Beetroot is one of the most nitrate-rich vegetables in a typical Western diet. And dietary nitrate, when you eat it, gets converted, first in your saliva, then in your stomach, into something called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a tiny gas molecule, and it tells the smooth muscle in your blood vessel walls, relax, open, let blood through with less resistance. It's one of your body's own natural mechanisms for pressure regulation. The evidence here is genuinely strong. A 2015 study published in Hypertension, that's one of the major cardiovascular journals, found that drinking about 250 milliliters of beetroot juice daily, roughly 1 cup, produced statistically significant reductions in blood pressure within hours of consumption and maintained that effect over time. Now, a word of caution I always give. If you're on medications for erectile dysfunction, like sildenafil, these also work through the nitric oxide system. Adding significant amounts of beetroot can stack the effects unpredictably. Worth mentioning to your doctor. My favorite way to get beetroot into the daily routine has nothing to do with juicing, actually. I'll tell you in a moment. The simplest method: roast beets on Sunday and eat them throughout the week. I wrap them whole in foil. No need to peel first. Roast at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, that's about 200 Celsius, for 45 to 55 minutes until a knife goes in cleanly. The skins slip off after roasting. Just use a paper towel while they're still warm and they come right off. Slice, drizzle with good olive oil, a little balsamic, and some fresh thyme from the garden. That's lunch or a side dish. For a more concentrated option, beetroot powder is worth keeping around. It's just dehydrated beet powdered. 1 tablespoon stirred into water or a smoothie gives you roughly the same nitrate content as 1 full beet. Ginger is the plant that keeps revealing new layers. I've used it in my kitchen for 30 years, but it wasn't until about a decade ago that I really sat down with the research and understood what it was doing. The compounds in ginger, gingerols and shogalls, appear to work on blood pressure through at least 2 distinct pathways. First, they seem to inhibit the same calcium channel mechanisms that some blood pressure medications target. Calcium is what tells vessel smooth muscle to contract. Block the signal, vessel relaxes. Second, and this is the part I find remarkable, ginger appears to have antiplatelet effects, meaning it influences how sticky your blood cells are. Blood that flows more smoothly requires less pumping pressure to get through. A 2019 review in the journal Phytotherapy Research analyzed 11 randomized controlled trials involving ginger supplementation and blood pressure outcomes. The overall direction of evidence was positive, particularly for systolic pressure. Now, I want to be precise here. The studies used varying doses and forms of ginger, and the effect sizes were modest. This isn't something that replaces medication for serious hypertension. What it does is build a supportive foundation. That's its rightful role. I grow ginger in pots. It doesn't love Oregon winters either, but I keep a root going in my kitchen window from spring through fall, and it produces more than I can use. There's something about fresh ginger that dried just can't quite match. Fresh ginger decoction. This is my daily winter drink. I've been making it the same way for probably 12 years now. I grate about a 1-inch piece, roughly a tablespoon of fresh ginger, directly into a small saucepan. Cover with 2 cups of water. Bring to a simmer and hold it there for 10 minutes. Strain into a mug. Add a squeeze of lemon. Lemon is actually meaningful here, not just flavor. The vitamin C appears to support the conversion of dietary compounds from other plant foods. I drink this unsweetened, but if you need something, a small amount of raw honey is what I'd suggest. Not sugar. Honey has its own quiet chemistry. I want to take a detour here because talking about botanical blood pressure support without talking about magnesium is like talking about a fire without mentioning oxygen. Magnesium deficiency is extraordinarily common. Estimates suggest somewhere between 50 and 70% of adults in Western countries don't reach the recommended daily intake. And magnesium is a mineral that plays a direct role in allowing vessel walls to relax. Stinging nettle, Urtica dioica, is one of the highest plant sources of magnesium per dry weight. It's also rich in potassium, which works alongside magnesium to regulate vascular tone. I harvest nettle from the edge of my property every spring. Gloves are non-negotiable. Pumpkin seeds are my other magnesium workhorse. 1 ounce, about a small handful, provides roughly 150 milligrams of magnesium. That's a meaningful contribution toward the 320 milligrams per day recommended for women over 50. This is food as medicine in its most literal sense. No extraction, no supplement, no pill. Just the actual plant, eaten. There's something profoundly right about that. For nettle, I make what herbalists call a nourishing infusion, stronger and longer than a tea. 1 ounce of dried nettle leaf, a generous cup of loosely packed herb, into a quart mason jar. Fill with just boiled water. Lid on. Let it steep for 4 hours minimum, or overnight. The infusion pulls out minerals that a quick steep simply can't reach. The resulting liquid is dark green, mineral-rich, and honestly, a little grassy. I drink 1 cup in the morning. It's an acquired taste. I've acquired it for pumpkin seeds. I keep a jar on my counter, a small palmful a day. Eat them as a snack, throw them on a salad, stir them into oatmeal. Consistent, small, daily. That's the practice. Lemon balm. This herb grows in my garden like it owns the place, which I suppose it does at this point. It spreads with enthusiasm. I've made my peace with that. Now, lemon balm is primarily discussed in the context of anxiety and sleep. But here's the connection most people miss. Chronic psychological stress is a documented driver of sustained elevated blood pressure. It's not a metaphor. It's a measurable physiological pathway. When you're under chronic stress, your nervous system keeps your vessels in a state of partial constriction. Your heart rate stays slightly elevated. Your kidneys retain more sodium. All of these push pressure upward. Lemon balm contains compounds, rosmarinic acid in particular, that appear to modulate activity in the nervous system, supporting a calmer baseline state. A 2004 study published in Psychosomatic Medicine found it reduced stress markers meaningfully in healthy volunteers. If blood pressure has an anxiety component, and for many people it does, particularly what's sometimes called white coat hypertension, then addressing the nervous system is part of the botanical picture. I think of lemon balm as the quiet one in the group, gentle, indirect, necessary. I use lemon balm in the evenings specifically. This isn't a morning herb for me. It's part of winding down. A good handful of fresh leaves, 8 to 10, lightly bruised in your hands to release the oils, then dropped into a cup or small teapot. Pour water that's come just off the boil, 90 degrees Celsius, about 195 Fahrenheit, over them. Steep 5 to 7 minutes. The flavor is bright, lemony, and clean. Nothing about it tastes medicinal, which might be why it's so easy to make a nightly habit of it. I combine mine sometimes with a little passion flower, but that's a story for another video. Tonight, just the lemon balm. That's enough. Flaxseed, it's in my freezer right now. Has been for years, and I want to tell you exactly why. Flaxseed is rich in alpha-linolenic acid, an omega-3 fatty acid. It also contains lignans, plant compounds with mild hormonal and anti-inflammatory properties. And it's one of the better studied foods in the context of blood pressure. A 2013 randomized controlled trial, published in the journal Hypertension, gave participants 30 grams of ground flaxseed daily for 6 months. These were patients with peripheral artery disease, most of whom also had high blood pressure. The hypertensive subgroup showed an average systolic reduction of around 15 millimeters of mercury and 7 diastolic, significant numbers. Though I want to be clear, that was a specific population, not a general sample, so I don't wave those numbers around as a universal promise. The likely mechanism involves the omega-3s helping to reduce vessel wall inflammation and improve the responsiveness of the vessel lining. Less chronic inflammation in the vascular system means more pliability, more relaxation, better pressure management. One important detail, you must grind flaxseed to access the active compounds. Whole flax seeds pass through your digestive system largely intact. Ground is essential. I grind a week's worth at a time in a small, dedicated coffee grinder. Keep it in the freezer to prevent the oils going rancid. Very simple. 2 tablespoons per day. I add it to oatmeal, stir it into Greek yogurt, mix it into homemade bread. It has a mild, slightly nutty flavor that goes with almost everything. Give it 6 weeks minimum before evaluating whether it's doing anything. Plants work on plant time, not pharmaceutical time. Patience is part of the protocol. Turmeric. I know. Everyone's talking about turmeric. I almost hesitated to include it for that reason. But leaving it out because it's popular would be dishonest. The evidence is real. Curcumin, the primary bioactive in turmeric, is one of the most studied plant compounds in modern pharmacognosy. Thousands of published studies, most of them in vitro or animal models. But the human data is growing. Regarding blood pressure specifically, curcumin appears to reduce what I describe as vessel lining inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation in the inner surface of blood vessels is associated with reduced elasticity and elevated pressure. Curcumin seems to interrupt that cycle. The bioavailability challenge is real and worth being direct about. Curcumin is poorly absorbed on its own. The standard workaround, and this is well documented, is to combine it with black pepper. The piperine in black pepper dramatically increases absorption. A fat source also helps. Curcumin is fat-soluble. Combine it with olive oil or coconut milk, add a pinch of black pepper, and your absorption is meaningfully improved. Golden milk? It sounds fancier than it is. This is just a warm drink I have before bed a few nights a week. 1 cup of full-fat oat milk or coconut milk in a small saucepan. Warm gently. You don't want a boil, just a gentle heat. Add 1 teaspoon of turmeric powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, a generous pinch of black pepper, and a 1/2 teaspoon of raw honey. Whisk until smooth. Pour into a cup. Drink warm. The color alone is, well, it looks like something the creator put some real effort into. I want to end on something that might seem like a left turn, but it isn't. Valerian root is primarily known as a sleep herb, and that's relevant here because poor sleep, genuinely poor, chronic sleep, raises blood pressure, measurably, consistently. Night after night of disrupted or insufficient sleep activates the same stress pathway that keeps your vessels tense. A large epidemiological study published in the journal Sleep found that adults sleeping fewer than 6 hours per night had significantly elevated rates of hypertension compared to those sleeping 7 to 8. That's not a small effect. Valerian contains valerianic acid and a range of iridoids that appear to support the calming side of the nervous system, the parasympathetic branch. Better activation of that system at night means deeper sleep cycles, lower cortisol in the morning, and, over time, a calmer baseline vascular tone. Sleep is a prescription tool, one that no one charges you for. If you're managing blood pressure and not actively prioritizing sleep, you're leaving one of the most powerful levers untouched. Valerian has a strong, earthy smell. I'll be honest, it takes some getting used to. I take it in capsule form rather than tea specifically because of that. But the effect, for me and for what I've read, is real and gentle. Valerian is most predictably effective as a standardized extract in capsule form, typically 300 to 600 milligrams of a 0.8% valerianic acid extract. Take it 30 to 60 minutes before bed. For those who want the traditional preparation, a tablespoon of dried root simmered in 2 cups of water for 15 minutes, strained and sipped warm before bed. The taste is earthy and quite strong. Honey helps. The research suggests the effect builds over 2 to 4 weeks of consistent use. Don't give up after one night. I want to say something plainly before we close. None of these 12 plants is a replacement for your doctor's guidance or your prescribed medication if you have it. What they represent is the layer of living support that a well-tended body deserves, and that the Creator, I believe, intended us to have access to. We covered 12 today: olive leaf, hawthorn, garlic, hibiscus, celery seed, beetroot, ginger, nettle and pumpkin seed, lemon balm, flaxseed, turmeric, and valerian. That's not a list, that's a garden. Each one has a distinct mechanism. Each one fills a slightly different role. And together, combined with good sleep, movement, and a diet that looks more like your great-grandmother's than a convenience store, they form something that I think of as a living pharmacy. Now, I want to hear from you, down in the comments. I want to know which of these you've already tried and what your experience has been. And more specifically, I want your technical question this week. Have you noticed a difference in your blood pressure readings based on the time of day you take your measurements? Because there is a phenomenon called the morning surge, where readings spike in the first 2 hours after waking, and it's botanically relevant in ways most people don't consider. Let's talk about that. If this video was useful to you, please pass it along to someone you love. That's what this channel runs on, genuine sharing between neighbors. That's it. Subscribe if you'd like more of this. I'll be back soon. Until then, God bless you and your garden. Stay well, stay rooted, and may the Lord keep your heart strong.